everybody, it's Bethany, and this week's entry into my YouTube channel, if you haven't subscribed, go ahead and do that now, is a question that I get often, which is how are you shipping framed or unframed pieces with pastel? Since pastel can tend to have a fragile surface, we want to protect it and ship it as safely as possible. So I'm going to be showing you an unframed technique and also a framed technique. I have some paintings to ship out this week, and so I thought this would be a really quick video just to show you, so whenever you have gotten into a show or an exhibit or have sold to a new client, which is always a great feeling, you'll be able to package yours and feel comfortable that it's going to arrive safely. So I'll do that really quick, and make sure you're sending in any questions that you can think of, things that you want to know about, products, techniques, general art business questions. I love to answer them, and send those in to me. You can email me or you can comment here on YouTube and I will hopefully get to your question. Thank you so much, and let me show you that real quick. Okay, you guys, this is the painting that I'm going to be shipping this week. It is an unframed painting on some sanded paper, and my client is going to frame it themselves. And so the best way to get this safely to a client is to sandwich it between some foam core. Now you can see that when I pat the surface, there is some residue because pastel is dry, and I do not fix my paintings before I ship them with any type of fixative because it does change the colors. Sometimes the lighter colors would be, and the values would be kind of become transparent. The darks would really sink into the surface, and so I like to keep mine unfixed. So the best way to do that is I like to use black foam core, and I trim it to just a little bit bigger than the painting surface, and you can see there. I just use a regular X-Acto knife, and I could clean that up a little bit just so when it gets to the client it looks as professional as possible. And what I'm going to do now is use some black artist tape. This is just some black tape that I got in the drafting section at my art store. It's not a permanent tape. We don't want any kind of permanent tape because we want the client to be able to remove it from the foam core. So I'm going to be doing what's called a hinge, and so what I do is I pull out a little bit of tape, and I actually use probably some scissors. If I could find some would be awesome, but I'm just going to use my X-Acto knife for now, and I'm going to trim off the torn edge just so it looks nice and neat. It's real easy to cut, and I'm going to actually put the sticky side on the reverse of my painting, and I'm not pushing too hard, but I do want it to stick a little bit. And now I'm going to cut another piece for the other side. Like so. And you can see that it's just barely holding the surface. Okay, now I'm going to cut two more pieces. And I'm going to line up my painting, being very careful. You know, on my painting, I know which parts of it I can touch and which parts I can't, so just be real careful at this point. And I'm going to use this tape that I just cut and place it over the sticky side of the tape that I put on the back. And so that's holding it down without touching the surface of the painting. And then I wrap, if there's any excess of the piece of tape that's on the actual painting, I'm just gonna tuck it over onto this piece of tape on the top, and then I'm gonna wrap it around the foam core. Sometimes I cut it large enough to where I don't have to wrap it and it just is on the surface, but that just makes it look nice and neat. I can press that down to make sure that piece of tape on the back right there is nice and stuck down. And then I'm just going to do the reverse, or do the same thing again on the other side. Very careful. I'm kind of touching the painting with just my fingernails, just the tips of my fingers, so I'm not getting a lot on my hands. Got to be kind of careful on this foam core because it can get dust on it and it can look kind of messy if you get too much of it on the foam core. All right, so see, now my painting is securely on with this hinges. If you have a painting, if you have more space at the top of your painting, you could hinge on the top. I don't like to put too many hinges because it makes it difficult for the clients to remove it, but this is a great way to send it to your client. Now what we have to do though is protect the surface, because we do have to cover this. And for that, I just use regular tracing paper. You can also use glassine, but glassine is a specialty paper in my market and it's harder to find. So I usually just go grab a pad of tracing paper at the craft store, and then that works awesome. And what I do then is I just place my foam core. You could actually do this before you tape your painting. That would probably actually go a little smoother. But I just line it up on the edges, and then I'm going to use my X-Acto knife to cut the size of the tracing paper to what I need it to be. Doesn't have to be perfect, but use a really sharp X-Acto knife for that so it doesn't tear the tracing paper. And then I'm just going to place that directly over the painting, and then using my black masking tape again, make sure you have really nice even cuts so it looks professional. The more you know, it's just a small step to not tear the paper, to have a rough edge there, but it makes all the difference. And I'm just going to tape this cover onto the surface and then over the foam core and around, so you're making another hinge. And that way the clients can lift it up and look at the piece. And then I usually put another one at the bottom. Then I place another piece of foam core on the top of the painting. And so that way I'm making a nice sandwich. And I'm careful to note where my tape was before, and I tape in the spaces between. Okay, so now I have my cute little art sandwich. I'm gonna take my business card to it. I'm also going to get some cute ribbons, some kind of twine, wrap it around it, make it just seem like my client is getting a present in the mail. I also put in instructions on pastel care that I will actually be putting on my blog. If you have a client that you want to send some information to about your paintings, you can go to my blog, and I have some information on there about the care and handling of this wonderful medium, so that they can then take it to their professional framer, or if they're a brave client, they can try to frame it themselves. I tend to discourage my clients from framing themselves, just because if they're not really familiar with the fragility of the medium, I would hate for them to accidentally brush across it or scratch it or in any way mar the surface. And so it's always best to advise them to take it to a framer that's going to be really knowledgeable about the medium, knowledgeable about using spacers behind the matting, or using a spacer between the glass and the mat, the glass and the painting if they're not using a mat. If all of that doesn't make any sense and you have a question about it, then ask, and maybe I'll do another question and answer on my YouTube. Now, for the second part of the video series, I'm going to be packaging up a framed piece and showing you the specialty box that I use and how I get it to exhibits and shows, and clients that have purchased the framed. So that actually I'm gonna upload on a different YouTube video just for time, because my phone is running out of storage. And so look for that also on my YouTube. If you haven't subscribed, please do like, share, comment, all of that stuff. It's always wonderful to hear and see that people are enjoying the videos. I'm here to help you. I love pastel. It's one of my my very favorite medium. I think it's so usable and applicable, and you know, you can just learn so much about it. It's a wonderful, wonderful medium. Anyway, I could go on and on. I'm rambling again, but anyway, look for that next video about how to ship a framed piece. and I will see you later. I hope you're having a great week. Bye.